You go to bed exhausted, not just physically, but in your soul. You've done everything right. You work hard. You've achieved things people admire. Maybe you've got a decent job, a degree on the wall, a place of your own, maybe even a relationship that looks good from the outside. And yet, something's missing. When your head hits the pillow, you don't feel peace. You feel tension, a quiet ache, like no matter how much you do, it's never enough. You scroll your phone late at night just to silence the noise in your chest. You chase goals that you hope will make the emptiness go away. But the moment you reach them, the silence comes back, louder. You've been taught that success will bring happiness, that possessions will bring fulfillment, that being admired will finally make you feel worthy. But none of it works, and you feel it. Deep down, you know, you're not broken. You're just trapped, and it's not your fault. In this video, we're going to expose the psychological trap that modern society has locked you into, something Erich Fromm saw decades ago, but few have the courage to face today. Stay until the end, because I'll reveal Fromm's most dangerous insight, one that explains why most people are quietly suffering, even when everything in their life looks fine. And by the end, you'll understand why your anxiety, your restlessness, your exhaustion aren't caused by what you lack, but by how you've been taught to live. You'll start to see the invisible war happening inside you, and how to step out of it. Fromm warned us, as long as you live to possess, to control, and to appear, you will be at war with yourself. And this war is silent. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It hides in your achievements, in your goals, in your polished image. It tells you, just a little more, then you'll feel okay. But you never do. This is the mode of having, a way of life built on accumulation, competition, and fear of loss. From the moment you were a child, you were trained to believe your value depends on what you own, what you achieve, and how others see you. You were never taught to just be. You were taught to earn your right to exist. That's why you feel anxious. That's why you can't relax. That's why you compare yourself to people online and wonder why they seem more fulfilled. They're trapped too. Most just hide it better. This isn't about motivation. It's about survival. You've been conditioned to believe that without achievements, without possessions, without applause, you are nothing. But what if that belief is the lie that's causing your suffering? In the next few minutes, we'll dismantle that lie piece by piece. You'll see how the mode of having dominates your thoughts, distorts your relationships, and disconnects you from who you really are. And then, we'll show you the other way, the mode of being. A life not defined by what you get, but by how deeply you live. It won't be easy. It will challenge everything you've been taught. But if you stay with me, this may be the moment where your real freedom begins. You didn't choose this. You didn't decide one day to tie your self-worth to numbers, likes, grades, or paychecks. It started early, when you were still small enough to believe that love should be unconditional. But then came the messages. Be good, and you'll get a reward. Get top grades, and we'll be proud of you. Dress the right way, and you'll be accepted. Win, so they'll notice you. And so, little by little, you learned. Who you are doesn't matter as much as what you can show. You became a performer in your own life. And it didn't stop with childhood. Society doubled down. Want to matter? Then get a job that impresses. Drive something people envy. Sculpt your body. Collect followers. Build a personal brand. Everything is about status. Everything is about control. Everything is about having. But here's the part they don't tell you. Every time you define your worth by what you have, you lose a piece of who you are. Because everything you can possess, money, beauty, success, is temporary, fleeting. And when your identity is built on the temporary, you start living in fear. The fear of losing, the fear of falling behind, the fear of being invisible. That's why you can never truly relax, why you check your phone compulsively, why you compare yourself to strangers and feel the panic rise. You're not imagining it. You're not being dramatic. You're reacting to a life lived in the mode of having, and it's slowly hollowing you out. Fromm didn't call it a lifestyle. He called it a pathology, because it doesn't stop. The moment you get one thing, your brain latches onto the next. A better job, a bigger apartment, a thinner body, more attention, more success. It's an addiction, one that wears a socially acceptable mask. And it's not just about things. Even your relationships start to feel transactional. You say, my partner, my friends, my followers, but underneath, it's possession, a need to control, to curate, to be validated. When people don't meet your unspoken expectations, they disappoint you. When they no longer serve your image, they fall away. And so you begin to isolate. You wear the right clothes, say the right things, smile at the right moments. But inside you feel disconnected, unseen, tired, because no one knows who you really are, not even you. Here's the hardest truth. The longer you live this way, the harder it is to hear your real voice beneath the noise. But somewhere deep down, something in you is still alive, waiting. It's the part of you that wants connection instead of control, meaning instead of performance, truth instead of image. That part of you is trying to speak. That's why you're here, listening. And it's that part we'll speak to next. Because the psychological damage of the mode of having goes even deeper than you realize. And once you see how far the roots go, you won't be able to unsee it. You tell yourself it's fine, that the stress is just part of life, that everyone feels this way, that the anxiety in your chest, the tightness in your throat, the ache you carry each morning, it's normal. But it's not. It's a symptom of something deeper, something far more dangerous than just being busy or ambitious. You are living in a constant state of psychological war, and you've been taught to call it success. At first, the rewards of achievement feel real. That rush when you get promoted, the dopamine hit when someone compliments your progress, the moment of pride when someone finally says, "You've made it." But those feelings don't last, do they? You get the job, and then it's the next role. You hit the fitness goal, and then it's time to go leaner, stronger, better. You buy something new, and 2 days later, it's just another thing on a shelf. That's not happiness. That's survival. Because once you've built your identity on having, you have to keep feeding it, or it collapses. Fromm called this the root of chronic anxiety. Not just fear of failure, but fear of ceasing to exist as you've defined yourself. And when that anxiety becomes your default state, it spreads like poison. It eats at your focus, your confidence, your sleep, your joy. You stop noticing sunsets. You stop feeling music. You stop being moved by silence. Because your nervous system is always bracing for loss. And that's just the beginning. Because then comes the void. It doesn't show up all at once. It creeps in. You start to feel numb, bored, unfulfilled, even in moments that should bring joy. You find yourself scrolling endlessly, not to be entertained, but to escape the weight of being alone with your own thoughts. This is what Fromm described as existential emptiness. Not because your life lacks content, but because it lacks meaning. And meaning can't be bought. It can't be achieved. It can't be performed. It can only be lived. But in the mode of having, you don't live. You perform. You perform success. You perform happiness. You even perform love. Which leads to the third and most devastating cost: alienation. Alienation from your own self. You look in the mirror and don't quite recognize the person looking back, not because they've changed, but because you've stopped listening to them. You've become a curated version of yourself, optimized, controlled, marketed, but no longer felt. You've lost your sense of wholeness, of belonging, of wonder. And the scariest part? You almost forgot what it was like to feel real. This is not your fault. You've been conditioned into this, but now you see it. And once you see the trap, you can begin to climb out. There is another way to live, a path that doesn't require you to abandon ambition, but to reframe it, a path that doesn't reject success, but finally puts it in its place. Fromm called it the mode of being, and next, we'll step into that world. The world where peace isn't a finish line, but the ground you walk on. There is another way. It doesn't shout. It doesn't flash. It doesn't demand applause. But when you begin to feel it, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. It's called the mode of being. And it's not a trend. It's not a productivity hack. It's not a 5-step morning routine. It's a radical shift in how you experience life. Because in the mode of having, everything is about control, possession, proof. You measure your value by your achievements, your looks, your success. You grasp, you chase, you perform. But in the mode of being, you exist from a different center. You're no longer asking, what do I have? You're asking, who am I, when I'm not trying to impress anyone? And the answer isn't in your resume. It's not in your followers. It's not in your income. It's in your presence. Fromm described the mode of being as a state of aliveness, where you no longer live through roles, but through reality, through connection, through the raw, unscripted experience of the present moment. You're not loving someone to be loved back. You're loving because you are love. You're not creating something to be praised. You're creating because it brings you joy. You're not chasing goals to silence insecurity. You're moving through life in alignment with who you are. And in this state, something powerful happens. The anxiety begins to fade, not because you've solved every problem, but because you're no longer fighting your own nature. You're not resisting change. You're not clinging to image. You're not at war with yourself. You're in flow. You begin to see that everything, your thoughts, your emotions, your fears, they're not enemies. They're signals, invitations to wake up, to soften, to return. And here's the most surprising part. This isn't passive. The mode of being is not sitting still and hoping life improves. It's full engagement with your work, your relationships, your body, your breath. But now you're showing up from essence, not ego. You're no longer wearing masks to survive. You're not afraid of being seen for who you are, because finally, you've started to see yourself. And yes, it's scary, because choosing being over having means letting go of the old definitions, the old armor, the old identity. It means facing the part of you that's still clinging to praise, to control, to status. But that fear, that resistance, it's not a warning. It's a signpost. It means you're getting close. Because on the other side of that fear is something no achievement can give you: freedom. But to reach it, You have to ask yourself a question almost no one dares to ask. Who am I without the mask of having? And if that question shakes something in you, good. Because next, we'll look directly at the fear that's been keeping you from answering it. You feel it before you name it. That subtle resistance, that inner voice saying, don't go too far. Don't let go just yet. You're drawn to the freedom the mode of being promises, but something inside holds back. It's not laziness. It's not confusion. It's fear. Not the kind you talk about, the kind you bury. Because stepping out of the mode of having, it means stepping away from everything you were told makes you valuable. Your titles, your roles, your carefully curated image. And when those fall away, what's left? Who are you without the brand, the resume, the goals, the applause? That question terrifies people. Because deep down, we've been programmed to believe, if I stop performing, I'll disappear. That's the lie at the center of modern life. You've spent years, decades, building an identity based on what you can show, what you can achieve, what others can approve of. It's become your armor. And even though it's heavy, uncomfortable, and exhausting, you cling to it. Because without it, you fear you'll be invisible, unloved, forgotten. But here's the truth. That fear isn't a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're getting close to who you really are. Letting go of the mode of having means losing the illusion of control. It means no longer trying to be impressive. It means risking rejection, not just from others, but from the old version of yourself. And rejection hurts, because we live in a culture that still worships the surface. People will misunderstand you. They'll call you naive. They'll say you're throwing away your potential, and maybe part of you believes them. But the deeper part, the one that's been silent for years, is whispering something else. This is the way out. Still, there's one more obstacle. One more reason you feel stuck even after seeing the truth. Habit. You've lived in the mode of having for so long, it's automatic. You compare without realizing. You perform without choosing. You fear loss like it's a reflex. Even if your mind knows this isn't sustainable, your nervous system keeps dragging you back to what's familiar. This is why change feels so hard. Because you're not just shifting behaviors, you're rewiring identity. Fromm knew this. He said real freedom isn't a destination, it's a practice. A daily, moment-by-moment commitment to being real. And that takes patience, discipline, and most of all, compassion. You're unlearning a lifetime of conditioning. You're shedding armor you didn't even know you wore. And beneath it all, you're starting to remember yourself. Not the version that chased, that proved, that performed, but the one who was, before the world told you who to be. So the question now is, how do you begin? How do you step from illusion into truth, from possession into presence? That's what we'll explore next. Because knowing the path isn't enough. You have to walk it. Because this path doesn't start with a map. It starts with a mirror. And the first thing you must do is look. Not at your goals, not at your to-do list, not at your reflection in the eyes of others, but at yourself, as you are. That's the beginning of the mode of being, radical self-awareness. Ask yourself, with brutal honesty, where are you still chasing approval? What parts of your identity are built on performance? Where do you act to be seen rather than to be true? These are not easy questions. They cut deep. But without facing them, the old programming wins. Because the mode of having doesn't die in silence. It hides in shadows, in subtle behaviors, in the voice that says, you're only valuable when you're achieving. And so your first move isn't action, it's observation. The second step is inner detachment. This isn't about throwing everything away. It's not about becoming a monk or rejecting material life. It's about changing your relationship with it. Owning things isn't the problem. Being owned by them is. Fromm warned, when objects, achievements, or images define who you are, you become a slave to them. Detachment means you can still enjoy what you have without mistaking it for who you are. That's real freedom. Next, you cultivate authentic experience. This is where being starts to take root. Do things that express who you are, not who you think you're supposed to be. Create not to impress, but because your soul needs to speak. Share not to perform, but because connection matters more than applause. Love, not to get something back, but because it's your natural state when you're not afraid. These moments, no matter how small, break the illusion. They pull you back into presence. They remind you, this is what it feels like to be alive. And then, your relationships change. In the mode of having, people are used, measured, owned. In the mode of being, people are seen. You don't connect with roles. You connect with essence. Not, what can I get from you, but, who are you, really? That kind of connection is rare. But once you taste it, you stop settling for anything less. Finally, you need one more thing: courage. The courage to be misunderstood, to disappoint expectations, to lose things that never truly mattered, to stop performing and still believe you're enough. Because you are. You always were. But the world taught you to forget. And now, you're remembering. So yes, it's risky. You will face doubt, resistance, old voices screaming, "This is unsafe." But the real danger isn't stepping into the unknown. It's staying in the lie, living your entire life inside the prison of having and calling it normal. Now, you know the way forward, but a decision still remains. And in the next chapter, we'll face it together. And now you stand at the edge, not of a cliff, but of a truth. And there are only two paths forward. You can return to the familiar, back to the checklist, the grind, the performance, back to the game of almost there, where peace is always one achievement away. Or you can step into something terrifying, honest, and real. You can choose to be, but don't romanticize it. This isn't an easy choice. It means letting go of who you've pretended to be. It means risking being seen as less by a world obsessed with more. It means showing up without armor, without certainty, without the polished version of yourself. But here's what no one tells you. The moment you choose being, you stop surviving and start living. You feel the ground beneath your feet again. You notice the warmth in a real conversation. You breathe, not as a break between tasks, but as a full-body yes to life itself. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You're not chasing. You're not defending. You're just here. And that is the beginning of real peace. Not the kind you post about, not the kind you buy, but the kind that anchors you, even in chaos. Because when you're rooted in being, you don't fear losing. You don't fear change. You don't fear not being enough. You are enough. Now, as you are. And yes, it will take practice. You'll forget. You'll fall back into old habits. The voice of scarcity will return. But every time you remember, even for a breath, you get stronger. Every moment you choose presence over performance, truth over image, love over control, you reclaim yourself. So here's the question you can't avoid anymore. What will you choose? You can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unlearn this truth. So you either go back to the war, or you take the first real step toward freedom. You know the cost of staying. You've lived it, felt it, carried it. But now you've tasted something else, and the choice is yours. So here we are. You've seen the illusion for what it is. You've felt the cost of living in the mode of having. You've heard the call to return to who you truly are. And now, there's no going back. Not because someone told you what to believe, but because something inside you woke up. You felt it. That subtle shift, that moment of stillness, that breath where the weight lifted, that quiet whisper that said, This is what I've been missing. And maybe you're scared. That's okay. Fear shows up when the truth gets too close. Let it come. But don't run, because behind the fear is a life you haven't met yet. One where you no longer chase meaning, you live it. One where you no longer beg to be seen, you see yourself. One where peace is not a finish line, it's the soil beneath your steps. This isn't the end. This is page 1. You're not healed yet. You're not fully free. But you're aware. And that changes everything. From here, the work continues. Moment by moment, breath by breath, choice by choice. And if this journey stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Pause, reflect, write, speak. Tell someone what you realized. Tell yourself what you now know. Say it out loud. I choose to be. Because there's someone else out there, just like you, waiting to hear those words. And you might be the reason they find the courage to begin.